Hey y'all, Natalie here for a Cherry on Top's design team. Today I'm creating this layout about our little camper. So here are my goodies I'm using. I'm using those feather dies from Jane Davenport and this Prima puffy sticker sheet called Zella Teal. I've been saving this and I wanted to design a layout around the sticker sheet. And then I recently got the Wolfpack collection in as well from Heidi Swap. And oh my gosh, it went with this Prima sticker sheet perfectly. So I dive right in and I want like a bohemian, really like grungy, awesome, wild adventure. So what I'm doing is I picked this wood grain paper out of the Wolfpack stack. And then I put my clear gesso on it because I'm going to do a lot mixed media. But then the brown bit in the middle was a little too dark. So I just used a little bit of white gesso on top of that to kind of lighten it up. So now I'm going to get started with my mixed media. And here I am using, Pink Fresh Studio watercolors. So I go with this blue color and I'm doing this smooshing technique. And I really, I like my colors concentrated, so I don't add a ton of water. And then I'm using my water brush to kind of soften up the edges and make it a little more organic without the hard straight lines that sometimes the packaging technique can give. And now I'm going to use this green color. And these are colors that I pulled from the Heidi Swap Wolfpack collection. And so the green wasn't quite right. So I'm adding a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of gesso and putting it, mixing it up. And it gives me the right color green that's in that collection. And you can see later I'll choose a paper that's really similar to the color. So I'm again using the smooshing technique, and it's almost a different texture since I added that gesso to it. It's more opaque, which is cool because you'll see here, you'll think I'm done and I'm not. I go in later and add some more. So I do the same. I soften up the edges and make it a little more flowy. And then I bust out my paper towels. They were giving me trouble. One sheet just kept falling off. But I used that as well to soften it up, grab up the excess water so it doesn't take 18 years to dry. And next I'm going to use this navy blue Heidi Swap Shine, and I'm just going to use that for splatter. I didn't want to try to smush it on. It's a pretty dark color, so it could overpower everything I have on there. So I try splatters with my paintbrush, and then finally I just moved to splattering with the stick. And if you hear background noise, I'm sorry. I'm having to record this when my kids are home, so c'est la vie, right? So there we go, more navy blue splatters. And if I miss anything for you guys, make sure to leave a comment down below, because I tried to make this video short and it's still over 13 minutes long. So I had to cut out some things. So if I miss anything that you have questions about, please let me know and I'll get back to you, I promise. So now, I got my rustic sparkle going on. So what I'm doing is I pulled out a bunch of my favorite glitter papers that might go with these collections. And I'm test cutting the feathers out of my glitter papers. So you'll see I have this pretty black and white one, and I have this teal one, and this chunky glitter one did not work. It totally disintegrated, so I set that aside. And this one's almost like a plasticky glitter paper, and you can see it would take some work to peel apart every little piece, but it does work. It's kind of a wood grain. So if I really wanted to use that one, I would, but I actually decided to go only with the teal glitter. So now I'm going through and I'm looking for accent papers for the page, and there's where I brought the green color in to my background from the color off of that paper. And I picked the navy constellation and the stripe. I picked another constellation, but I won't use that one. So now I'm gonna just cut squares off of the big papers and take them over to my big shot and run the feathers through. And these are Jane Davenport dies. I saw Missy use them, of course, and I love a good intricate die, so this is my jam. If you don't have one of these for intricate dies, this is a Sizzix tool that gets all of the little bits out of your dies and your paper, and it is a lifesaver. It really saves a ton of time. And look at that intricate, oh, so pretty feather. So I cut 3 feathers from the constellation piece and from the striped paper piece. And what I'll also do is cut 3 from the glitter piece that I decide to use, and then I'll have 3 clusters of 3 feathers each. Because rule of thirds in design principles, we know that is good for balancing a page, right? So here I'm just kind of playing around with where I think I'm going to place the feathers, and then I decide it's too light. The background is too light for the papers and the collection that I want to use. And so some of you might gasp and you might hate this, but I promise it turns out really well. So I'm going to pull out my Paper Artsy ink, what are they called? Infusions. And I pull out Green Man. And Green Man actually is very dark. It has a lot of black color in it. And I know it looks kind of a hot mess on here, but when you roll over it with the paper towels and you pick up the color, what you're left with are these isolated ink pixel kind of bits, and it's really pretty. And you can see in the last shots, I know it looks a hot mess right now, I promise it looks better later. You can see in the last shots the isolation and the spritzing, and it's not too dark. And that's just where knowing your products that you use comes into play, and playing around with them and use them on your art journal. And I have like a book that has pre-gesso pages, and I'll play around with it before to make sure it's gonna do what I want it to do when it comes to creating a page. So that's what I'm doing here. Sometimes I'm sprinkling the ink onto the paper, then spritzing water. Sometimes I'm spritzing water, then sprinkling the ink. Each of those different techniques gives you a different look. So, and then again, I come in with my water brush and I soften up some edges and make some harsh lines a little more organic. And again, also a lot of it's going to be covered up with my stickers and my photo and the title. So I just want these splatters and ink crystals to stick around the sides and kind of go with the collection. It is a dark collection. The Wolfpack collection is darker, but you can do a lot of things to use the dark colors in the collection and lighten them up, like with this white background. I use the dark colors, but it's still an overall light effect because my photo is light and the paper is light, the background paper. So now I have my black splatters how I like them, and I'm gonna start building the page. And I get my clusters of feathers just how I like them. So now I'm going to move them around kind of as a clump from now on. So I just choose one of each pattern in each of my 3 clusters. And there's the glitter ones. Oh, I'm telling you, that one, I sent it through twice, and that was a bad idea. That broke down the paper and it basically disintegrated, kind of with the big glitter paper. So now I'm going to use these scraps that I used to cut the feathers out of to back part of my photo. So just a way to use up those scraps instead of sticking them in my bin, because my bin is overflowing for sure. So, and plus it does a good way of tying in the feathers into the photo as well. So I rough up the edges, of course, because we got to be rustic with it. And I just back the left side of the photo. And I'm doing it. I'm committing. I'm sticking it there. And I start gluing down the feathers as well. I'm committed. This is how I want it to look. Oh, okay. So I pull out these large silver foil alphas from Momenta that I've had in my stash for a while, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with them. But my title is going to be Go Drink the Wild Air So I wanted the go to be big because it's a camper and we go in it, right? So I used some navy, small, tiny little puffy alphas from Pink Fresh Studio. And then I also use these Concord and Ninth dies. And what I'll end up pulling out the insides, I almost always just use the outline because I really like how it shows through the mixed media from below. So I also, I said we were going to cover up a lot of the mixed media that we did, and we do, but also you can't be afraid to layer up because that's what really makes an interesting look. And so I'm layering these feathers on top of the O. And so because they're so intricate and they have the cutouts, you can still see the title, of course, through them. And I just really like the way that looks. So I won't make you watch all of this, I promise. So what I'm gluing each tiny alpha down, and I set my paper pad on top of it to dry so it would smush it down a little bit. And now I'm finishing up. These are just cut out of cardstock, so they don't need to be smushed as much and they'll dry quickly. And I'm gluing down the rest of my feathers. So again, layering things on top of the photo, on top of the title, on top of one another really brings out interest and texture in the page and builds it up. So see if that splatter made you nervous. I'm basically covering it up right there. It doesn't make me nervous. I like it. I'm not afraid of some color on my page, that's for sure. I'm not a pastels kind of gal. So now I'm going to bust out the stickers. So this was the initial plan, was to design the whole page around these puffy alphas. And then the Heidi Swapp Wolf Pack just went so well with it that it kind of turned into Prima and Wolf Pack combination. But the feathers were the whole inspiration. I literally waited on these dies to come in so I can use these puffy stickers. So I'm moving around the page a bunch of different places, and I finally light on one there on the edge of the photo, and then I'll stick the other one at the top in my feather cluster. And now, I go through the ephemera from Wolfpack, and I find that heart, and it looks so cute in the middle of the O. And I pick those, chevrons, and they kind of balance out the page because the go sticks out in the top left. So those kind of are going to go by the other part of the title and stick out on the bottom right to give the page balance. And then that ombre clear piece unplug underneath, it just had to go there. We unplug when we go camping. We try to. So, and then that is from the Wolfpack collection. Those are feathers, or they might be leaves, but they're silver foil. And so I thought, oh man, I really want them to help accent the go. But then the white around them was really giving me trouble. But in the end, after I stick all the puffies on, I decide, I really need the rest of that foil to balance out and to bring in the go foil. So I cut the white edges off of them, and they worked perfectly. That is just what it needed. The white was too much around the edge, so I just trimmed them up a little bit closer to the icon, and it worked perfectly. And I think that we are nearing the end of this process. So check out all the links below. You can find more pictures on my blog and in the A Cherry on Top gallery. And here you'll see some close-ups as well. And you can see those black splatters didn't overpower. So let me know if you have any questions. Please give me a like and a follow. Thanks so much, y'all. Bye.